Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time with us tonight. My name is Kishan Zuber. I am the Vice President of Enrollment Management and Marketing here at Wilkes, and we're delighted that you're spending your Sunday evening with us. To start, I'd really like to acknowledge that it's our hope and wish that we could be greeting you on campus today and meeting you face-to-face, but in light of the circumstances, we thought that a virtual accepted student week was the next best thing, or at least the best that we could offer. And so we're kicking off this event, or this week, with an overview session just to get you started. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have throughout the session and, of course, at the end. If you would like to ask us a question, if you could please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of this webinar. We will read off your questions and make sure that we get everything answered. We certainly want this to be a session that is tailored to you and the type of information that you'd like to have. And we're going to give an overview of Wilkes and give you some background information, and then again, happy to dive into your questions. With us today, we have our interim president, Dr. Paul Adams, and he's going to start us off with giving you just an overview and a welcome, and then we'll go from there. Paul, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I couldn't be more delighted to be here. Thank you, Kishan, and welcome everyone to our virtual Accepted Students Week. Well, I'm indeed privileged to welcome you. I'm in my office here in Wilkes Hall this evening. It's the building that's depicted in Kishan's backdrop. And I certainly want to thank you so much for joining us tonight for our kickoff event. You know, we're really privileged to be able to share our Wilkes with you, and are so grateful that you'd invest your time to learn even more about us. You know, even though we've been teaching, learning, and working remotely at Wilkes here since March 16th because of the pandemic, you know, we've remained on our spring semester schedule, and we're just 4 days away from the end of classes and the start of our final exam. And I'm sure, just as is the case for you, you know, we've had to delay our spring commencement and all of its attendant activities and celebrations. And if you're here with us this fall, you'll get to be part of that when we celebrate for the class of 2020 on Saturday, September 12th. But you well understand our graduates' disappointments, given all that you're missing this spring. I know many of your goals have been missed this year. There are plays not being performed, games not being played, academic ceremonies canceled, spontaneous senior year events with your classmates not occurring, and $1,000 losses, both large and small, that you're saddened to miss. And just know that in spite of all that, you still deserve our heartiest congratulations, because you've worked so hard to achieve so much. We certainly recognize that we can't replace what you've lost, but we'd be delighted to help you begin a new chapter in your life here at Wilkes, where new relationships and accomplishments can await you. And I hope tonight that we can begin to sketch out for you what a Wilkes journey can look like. You know, we believe so much that our campus is a special place, and while we aren't together here physically in Wilkesboro tonight, we're so very proud of the campus and the experiences that we've created. You know, and we really look forward to showing that off to you over the course of the next several days, and hopefully again this summer, and hopefully in the fall when we could all be here together again. So welcome, and thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And, you know, I know we obviously, we're anxiously awaiting to get back to our activities and do what we can. Maybe talk a little bit about what students do, what they have opportunities to do at Wilkes when we're back full force. What are some of the options for experiential learning and different things that the students can experience when they're at Wilkes?
Well, you certainly, you know, Wilkes is an institution that gives you all the opportunities of a large, comprehensive university in the small, intimate surroundings and atmosphere and culture of a liberal arts college. So we pride ourselves in providing all kinds of activities. You know, there are over 70 clubs and organizations that students can participate in. We have 23 sports that students are involved in. There are 70 different majors and minors in our academic portfolio mix. So they're just wonderful opportunities that everybody can have a chance to do. But what we want to be sure that we're able to do is augment that with experiential education. Or we talk about experiential education as being those kind of real life opportunities that take the theories that we're learning in the classroom and put them into practice in real life situations in the community. And so we have a robust internship program that allows students to go out multiple times over the course of their careers to be engaged, no matter what their major is, in professional organizations where they can begin to ready themselves for the career opportunities that will be available to them upon their graduation from Wilkes. So there's we have an office of internships and experiential learning that's there and begins to work with students as early as their first year to begin preparing them to be able to go out and work in all of these opportunities around the region of northeastern Pennsylvania.
Nice. And speaking of northeastern Pennsylvania, maybe talk a little bit about, I'm sure we have some viewers tonight that are from out of the area. What is it like in Northeast PA, which we fondly call NEPA?
Sure.
Maybe talk about living here and being in this space and some of the things they can experience outside of campus as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, northeastern Pennsylvania is a beautiful region, and I think a wonderful place to come and experience higher education. First off, let me say that the campus is always going to hub for the student experience, and at Wilkes, relationships matter, and we tend to attract students who want to hang out and do things together on or nearby campus. But that being said, students like to have options on the entertainment front. And so students at Wilkes, have access to concert and performances around our region, whether it be at the Mohegan Sun Arena, the Kirby Center on Public Square, or the Toyota Pavilion at Montage Mountain. There are several professional sports teams in the area, all kinds of restaurants, movie theaters, plenty of fairs and festivals, and other cultural activities that students can choose from. And not to mention all the wonderful natural resources of the region that allow for access to all kinds of outdoor activities. You can take great advantage of our venture education program at Wilkes. Our programming board, our student development office, both work out of our Henry Student Center. They really have developed an expertise at finding fun activities around the region for our students to attend. And, most of them are for free or at deeply discounted prices. But we also talk about, northeastern Pennsylvania being a real laboratory for student learning. We've always had a faculty that's very creative at finding ways to engage their students in different activities around the region for years. In essence, really taking the theory of the classroom and applying it in our community, whether it's botany research in the natural gas fields of the region, or a sports management class visiting with the manager at the Mohegan Sun Arena, or to understand the complexities of running a major sports and entertainment venue, or even in our pharmacy school, they get involved in outreach activities in the community. I think the one they call it is the Colonel's Connect program, where they go out and do testing at senior centers across the region, doing blood pressure screenings and adherence counseling in a layered learning model. But there's lots of opportunities both in and out of the classroom, and we just think it's a wonderful region to be engaged with, and we try and take full advantage of that.
Yeah, I agree. As somebody who has been able to experience the area, you can have small city life. You can also, in 5 to 10 minutes, be hiking on a trail, be at the ski slopes. I mean, there's pretty much variety for anybody and any of their interests. And I always feel like Wilkes-Barre is close to home. It's on a major thruway, so it's easy to get other places too. And if this is not your home county or you're not close to Wilkes-Barre, I think it does feel close to home regardless. So
I
I
think you're
hope that
right.
you'll get a chance to experience that.
Yeah, you have these 4 major interstate highways that come together here in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it makes it easy to get to New York, to Philadelphia, to Washington, and even to New England, to Boston. And so, our faculty are very good at taking advantage of that proximity. I mentioned our programming board. They plan trips to Philly and New York all the time, Washington also. So it really is a central hub to be able to go off in multiple different directions to really be involved in all kinds of different cultural and educational activities. And some of these larger cities become hosts to national academic research conferences, and we love to be able to send students away to those kinds of events. And when they're in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic region at these big cities, it makes it real easy for our faculty to do that for our students.
Yeah, for sure. So Paul, you're an alum of Wilkes, and not just the president. Maybe tell everybody what your favorite thing about Wilkes is. Maybe it's a favorite spot, or you've been with us an awful long time, and certainly know the ins and outs of the university. But just from your personal experience, what do you really love the best about it?
Well, I look at my own experience. What I think Wilkes is best at, and what I cherish the most, is what Wilkes does for its students, and that's taking them beyond what I think is their self-perceived potential. I think that certainly was my case coming to Wilkes. How could I have ever imagined, that when I was an undergraduate roaming this campus, that one day, I'd be a dean here, I'd eventually become a vice president, and eventually get to serve as the president of the university. It would have been certainly unimaginable back then, but it's the kind of opportunity that Wilkes prepares its students for, and I think it cuts across whatever field. I think that's the gift that our faculty have. Beyond that, you talked about favorite places. This is a beautiful campus to live and learn on. There are old mansions that blend with more contemporary state-of-the-art facilities to create our living and learning spaces. We have old trees surrounded by new plantings that are really designed to sustain the environment. And, across the street from the campus is a river walk on the Susquehanna River that kind of frames the west side of our campus. And there's the nearby Kirby Park, which is just across the bridge to the river, adjacent to our athletic fields, which is a very special place, and a place that students going. But lastly, I think what do I enjoy most? Of course, are the students and my colleagues, I think, who are so dedicated to the success of our students. So I think it's a mixture of all those things that to me have made this such a special place for generations of students.
Thank you. And you make it special too. So I can say that I've personally witnessed you walk through campus. You know many of the students, and they know you. Students spend a lot of time in Wechsler, coming in and out. It's a very welcoming place. You have a lot of students that work for you and with you as well. And actually, before we had to take the campus off-site for a little while temporarily, every single day you are having lunch in the dining hall with students and with staff, and a lot of people. So if you could answer the big question of how's the food at Wilkes, I think that would be good.
Look at my cheeks, you can tell. They're probably all puffed. Yeah. I've had more than my fair share of meals at the Wilkes University Dining Hall. Well, Aramark is our food service provider, and we're really pleased with what they do for us on campus. We have 5 different food venues on campus, and I can assure all of our prospective students that they'll always find something to their liking. I think the thing all of us, of course, are missing in these few weeks that we've been away is, our daily Starbucks. That is something that we've all been craving since we've been gone. But But no, it's, we have the Henry Student Center has 3 different food venues in it that students can choose. There's meal equivalencies at the different stations around campus. So if you don't want to eat in the dining hall one day, you can go to Which or the Pod and get a salad or whatever you want to do. But, you will not go hungry here. We do 4 meals a day so that, we pretty much feed from morning until night. So it's a nice opportunity economically for students not to have to spend a lot of money also out there on those late night snacks and things like that. So.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Paul, we have a question, and I think it's something that is good for us maybe to address at this point. Earlier in the beginning of the session, you mentioned how really our lives have been disrupted due to COVID-19 and the types of changes that we've had to make. And so I think it might be good for us to share a little bit about how Wilkes has adjusted to these changes, and then maybe some of your thinking about ways the university is planning for summer events. And specifically, the question is, are we planning to have in-person classes in the fall? So I think if you could talk a little bit about all of that, it might just be helpful because it's such an uncertain time.
Oh, absolutely. Certainly this is a generation-defining event for the young people that are with us tonight. It's a situation none of us have lived through before. But I would tell you that, we first began working on this COVID-19 challenge as early as the middle of February when, news reports began to come out talking about some of the travel restrictions that were going to be going into place in different countries around the world. We were just a couple weeks away from our spring break, and recognizing how much travel our faculty, staff, and students do for educational purposes during spring break, it really required us to pay careful attention to travel advisories. Fortunately, our break was early in the spring break season. None of the advisories prevented our students from being able to travel to their intended destinations in Europe or the Dominican Republic or Costa Rica and all these different places that they went. So we were very fortunate. I think we just made it. And fortunately, everybody was healthy coming out of those situations. So we were very blessed. As we've wrestled with all of this, there are certain principles that we at Wilkes have tried to be guided by, first and foremost, to do all we can to protect the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff, and their families by being very attentive to sharing our resources and information with them in as timely a way as we can. We've really tried to be responsive and proactive in our responses to some of the changing and urgent needs of the members of our community. As we moved to remote learning, and students had to move home or into different locations to achieve that. We've been real attentive to making sure they have the hardware and the software and the remote access that they need. That took a couple weeks to get all done because we had to do it so quickly. But Dr. Ferentz from our provost's office and the IT department have really been wonderful. And our faculty have been wonderful in terms of making sure that our students can continue to participate in their classes as they should and keep attending on a regular basis. We've needed to support our faculty to make sure that they can deliver the highest quality remote education and services so that our students can continue to make progress in their courses this semester. I think our faculty have recognized that, this really is disruptive, and not everybody has the same exact access to the learning resources remotely. So, they've made decisions to give our students options about how they want to be graded this semester. I'm sure our students in the audience have heard about all of these different pass-fail options that colleges and universities have made available to students. And, we're the same. Students can choose to to either withdraw from a course if they felt they needed to, but they can also choose pass options, or if they want to be graded in the courses, they can do that also. But it really is just a recognition that we're really operating in a different environment. And I'm sure the students that are with us are feeling very much the same way from their last semesters during high school in that experience. And then lastly, we're being very careful to continue. We want to have the most robust and talented class that we can have of first-year students, and so we're doing everything we can to help our young people make decisions that we hope will land them here at Wilkes in the fall, so we can continue to meet our mission and help them be a part of it. So, those are all the things that we've been engaged in, and certainly, it's the uncertainty of this that makes this so challenging. And so, we're involved in all kinds of scenario planning, just like everybody else. So, we're very much guided by the federal, state, and local authorities who really guide us and direct how we have to operate as a campus. But certainly, it's our every intention to want to be here in the fall with a start in late August, recognizing that there are accommodations that we're probably going to need to make to be sure that everybody feels safe and healthy on campus. Certainly, from sanitation standpoints and social distancing standpoints, we're making all those different plans and arrangements now. But we have to think about other scenarios also, whether we could be delayed a week or two, or if the government said we had to teach remotely in the fall, we would be prepared to do that also. But that would be the last thing any of us want. And but we're preparing for all those different scenarios.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And, it's hard to be able to really answer that, I think, because we are all wondering the same thing, but doing our very best to plan and take all of the things into consideration. And one of the questions is, how soon would we find out? I think we're just really trying to understand what the situation is, what we'll be obligated to do or not do. And so we'll have to wait a little bit to understand that. I don't know if you have more to say about the timing of some of those decisions, but.
Well, obviously we want to make them as quickly as we can, and obviously all of them are going to be subject to change, depending upon what our governments may choose to decide to how they want to move forward with this. I suspect that we've tried to not rush to decisions and set people up for disappointment. But obviously there's a lot of planning ahead that needs to be done. And so, we will plan to open up on time until we can't, until something would change. We're going to prepare for an August startup. And should anything deter that, well, it would be a temporary delay, I anticipate, and we would just be all the more ready when the government says, you're free to resume online or our classes on campus. So, but we're thinking through, how are we going to structure gatherings on campus? Obviously, a campus is built around interactions and big events, and so we're thinking through, very much how we can protect everyone and keep everyone safe. So,
yeah, for sure. And from a admission standpoint, I can certainly say that we understand that there's a lot happening. We understand that students are impacted in different ways in different students. And so I would really encourage you all to work with your admissions counselor if you have specific requests, or if you're running into some obstacles about, getting us documentation, anything like that, or if you have questions about what your plans are and you want to talk through that with somebody. Every individual circumstance will be different, but just know that Wilkes is willing to be flexible, and we really get it. And we will try our best to communicate with you any new decisions that come out and anything that that you really need to know through many outlets. Obviously email, but sometimes we might text you, and pay attention to our social media, I would say, because you'll hear quite a bit on those channels as well. Paul, I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about maybe some advice. This will certainly be, it's always a transition to go from high school, for our seniors out there, from high school to college. It's a normal transition. There's a lot that goes into that. Obviously this year, even more so than ever. I was just wondering if you could put out there some advice for those folks who are going to start this transition, and you know, everybody has advice, I'm sure, but you know, maybe just giving them your words of wisdom on that.
Well, sure. Well, it's certainly an extraordinary spring, you know, to be making a decision, you know, without the customary visits and information sharing that typically goes on in the spring to help high school seniors, you know, make this decision, this very important life decision. Well, I would say first, hopefully, I think most students have done this by now, but making sure that they've got their list compiled of what's so important to them in a college or university, I think is an important first step. You know, thinking about what's negotiable in their decision and what's not. I think if they haven't done that already, it certainly is a very important place to start, or at least revisiting that and thinking that through as we go down to these last final weeks of decision making. I think taking advantage of all the tools that schools are providing, you know, the virtual tours, you know, the online chats with faculty, the virtual visitations such as we're doing here. I think that sends a message to young people about how accommodating schools are going to be for when they're here in the fall, as to how much they're accommodating their questions and their needs at this time when things are a little bit more challenging. So I would encourage people to take advantage of all the tools that everybody is providing, so that you can, as much as you can, understand the culture. Certainly how a school reacts in a crisis tells you a lot about its character and its values. You know, but third, I guess I would just say, try to resurrect, you know, in your mind, those feelings you had when you were on campuses visiting in person. You know, so much goes into your decision, but your sense of fit, I think, is what's so very important. That feeling of how you felt was so important. I know for my own children, when they chose their campuses, that sense of belonging and that sense that I could really see myself here. And I think trying to go back and remember what it was like when you were on these campuses, and then trying to rekindle those memories by doing the virtual tours, I think is a way to recapture that spirit.
Great, Paul, and you just kind of mentioned a little bit about, you know, the situation. And I was wondering, I've really seen, you were talking about how the attitude of the institution and how we react in times of crisis. And I was thinking that, you know, I've really seen the Wilkes community rally, and people have really stepped up and done some amazing things. They really have worked together. They work much more like a community, and they care very much for one another. I was wondering, if from your position, if you've seen, you know, what was maybe the most inspiring thing that you've seen in all of this? Because there's always positives, even amongst this. So maybe share what your most inspiring story has been so far.
Well, I mean, there's several things that come to mind. Certainly, I've been so impressed, you know, by our faculty and staff who so very quickly had to move about 1,000 undergraduate class sections to an online environment with 1 week's notice. You know, they've adapted to assure that, you know, our course outcomes intended for the campus experience, you know, are being replicated in these remote learning circumstances. And so to me, that was just a Herculean undertaking. And it really has gone off so very, very well. I'm not going to say that, there weren't challenges that needed to be overcome and that it was completely seamless, because it wasn't. But it really has worked remarkably well, and people's attitudes and sensitivities to one another have really just been inspiring to me. So that's certainly one of the great takeaways that I will have. To take that one step further, I think our faculty's sensitivities to the individual circumstances of all our students and how their different domestic situations are different. In some families, there's one computer and there's 3 children at home trying to learn, perhaps some in college, some in high school, some in elementary school. You've got mom and dad who are needing to work from home using all the same equipment. And the faculty really work with our students to make sure that, whether they're going to learn in a synchronous or an asynchronous environment, that they can continue to meet the class goals that they have. So I think that's just been wonderful. And, certainly, looking at all the aspects of the university where accommodations are being made, whether it's, in the admissions office and extending deadlines and things like that. But on the student side, I love the social media and being able to, go on Instagram and be able to see the different activities or in the social media that our student organizations and our student development and student affairs offices are providing, that kind of content to make sure that our students continue to be able to be engaged with one another, to be in contact with one another, and to keep our kernel spirit alive among everyone. And so all those things have just been, very engaging and very enriching, and something for me, who's privileged to be the president right now, to be very proud of.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's been so many amazing things happening, and people really make the world go around. And you actually said that about being one of your favorite things about Wilkes is the people. And I couldn't agree more. Being a part of this community is really, really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just talk a little bit about some admissions related pieces, because we have a few questions about that. Certainly, again, as Paul said, we're unsure about what will happen in the fall. We're planning lots of scenarios. If there are reasons that you have to delay admission, or if there's things that you're considering, or as things change, again, I really think spending time with your admissions counselor, having that conversation. We're going to be really flexible about your admission offer. But as Paul said, as of now, we have every reason to believe that we'll be there in the fall. But again, know that we'll be flexible. If you have specific questions about certain accommodations or needs that you have, really make sure your admissions counselor is your advocate there. You're also welcome to contact myself or anyone in the office, and then we'll get you connected with the right people. There's also going to be some sessions throughout the week with folks like Res Life, and also we're going to talk a little bit about orientation. And we do have a question about orientation. And I think I can very briefly mention orientation and some of the changes there. We really are going to be offering a virtual experience while we're still required to be remote. And then you will have a face-to-face experience as well, much closer to the semester. So tomorrow at 2:20, I believe, is our orientation session. And if you want to hear specifically from the folks that are planning that session and are making some of those changes and accommodations, that would really be the time to tune in. We're going to record that as well, so if you can't make it, that'll then be posted and you can hear more about orientation, plus continuous communications from our office along those lines. So more to come on that. That's really unfolding, and we have some good info for you coming up. And I just want to make sure we covered other topics. Yeah. Okay. Paul, maybe just also leave us, you've given advice to the students. Is there anything, I'm sure there's some parents and families out there, and they're going to be guiding our young people through this process. Anything you'd want to say to the parents in particular about how to help and be the best support for them at this time?
Well, my own experience, I think it would be patience, especially as this is always an anxious and eager time for parents as this decision making is going on. But in this very special, extraordinary year, where we're all in a circumstance we never anticipated, where we don't have all the resources and tools that are typically available to us to make this decision, I think it's especially important that we be patient with one another as this decision making unfolds. It's a new landscape for which none of us were prepared. I think a search process, a good search process, is guided by, good communications, understanding the priorities that your son or daughter has for the search process. And I guess I would say be patient, but also don't be comparing yourself to every other family too. I mean, everybody has different circumstances and different timetables, and comparing yourself to another student or another family, I think is a mistake, because each situation is unique and you have to make decisions according to what's best and right in your family. But just know that, take advantage of what we have to offer. I hope, I think Kishan has explained, and we will explain again and again this week, that, we stand ready to be of assistance and help. And, I think that's the advantage of an institution like Wilkes, that really is organized itself to pay individual attention to the special needs of its students. Well, that begins in the search process and continues right through graduation and into those alumni years. So please take advantage of what we have to offer and how we can help you with your decision making.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
If you have other questions, please use the question and answer tab. You can type them to us and we'll do our best to answer them live. Maybe, Paul, while we think about some of their questions, we could talk a little bit about Wilkes, the affordability of Wilkes. I can tell you, I'll start by saying that our financial aid counselors are always available. They are working every day and expecting your phone calls, emails. They're also able to do video chats with you. They can do some screen shares if you need help completing certain forms with them. They can do it by appointment, or you can just pick up the phone and call them or email them as well. So, they want to be available to help you answer any questions you have. And again, there's nothing more individual than financial aid. So, you need that one-on-one time with the financial aid counselor to be able to really understand your situation. But Paul, maybe in general, talk about, the Wilkes education and how different ways we've tried to make it affordable.
Well, sure. Well, I think it's important. I mean, we certainly recognize that few families ever have the luxury of thinking about the college search process without, some anxiety about the costs of higher education. We get that. We recognize that. 94% of our first-time, full-time undergraduates receive some form of financial aid from Wilkes. It can take the form of, merit scholarships for academic performance, named scholarships that can be awarded for academic merit or financial need. There are leadership scholarships and performance scholarships in the arts. But when you combine all of the resources that Wilkes has, we give perhaps as much as $38 million a year, along with state and federal financial aid programs to help make sure that a Wilkes education can remain well within reach of our students.
Thanks, Paul. And, I think it's really important to understand what the investment is and what you're getting out of that. And so, I know that you and I talk a lot about that return on education. Maybe just hit some points there too.
Sure. Well, we do believe a Wilkes education returns a great return on your investment, or ROA is the acronym, is depicted in the media. Here we like to focus on, what we call a return on education. And we think a Wilkes education, I think, provides an exceptional educational experience that is going to prepare you uniquely, for success after you graduate. And so much of this is based on this blending of personal engagement and hands-on learning that will help you to become really a standout in your field of interest. And we do that in this mentoring environment. We've been very proud that The Economist, the famous magazine, international magazine, has ranked Wilkes as 25th in the nation for economic value, something we've been very proud of. This year we were named by Washington Monthly as the best bang for the buck. The ranking measures schools that help students pursue a marketable degree at an affordable price and with the appropriate earnings after graduation. We were the top ranked school in our area in this region with Washington Monthly. And, we were most recently, we were among the top 10% of schools for return on investment or return on education from the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce. So I think you can see that, by even external third-party raters, Wilkes does provide an excellent return on its education and prepares you for a meaningful and well-paying career.
Yeah, for sure. And that's totally through a lot of the experiences that you mentioned earlier that our students have opportunities for. We did have a question about study abroad opportunities. Maybe you could elaborate more about the types of study abroad opportunities that Wilkes students receive.
Sure. Well, there are many different ways that you can study abroad. There are short and long-term experiences. You heard me talk a few minutes ago about spring break, and when we were preparing for our students to leave several weeks ago. So students can have these short-term experiences where faculty will take them on trips. Dr. Bolander from our psychology department took students over spring break to London and Vienna in a psychology course to study their roots and history of the field of psychology. We had other students, Dr. Taylor in our Sidhu School of Business, took students through the British Isles over the course of the spring break. But beyond that, we have students before the COVID pandemic who were actually giving up their commencement at Wilkes to be able to go with Dr. Stratford to study in the Galapagos Islands as soon as final exams are over. So that was a great experience. But, we also have students who will choose to spend an entire semester abroad. And, we have staff on campus who have special interests and special professional skills in terms of helping students arrange those situations for them. There are other shorter term experiences where students may go abroad for the summer, take some credits or an experiential learning experience, and we've had them go to Spain or different parts of Europe, things like that. So I'm thinking over spring break, Dr. Miller in political science always takes a group of students to Costa Rica, and one year he does the economics of coffee growing, and the next year he does ecotourism. And so he alternates year to year those experiences. But there's such a variety of different things that the young people can choose to do. And, you're only limited by what it is that your imagination allows, I think. And, we have something called the Beerley Fund, which is an endowment that allows students to apply for supplemental funding to help pay for these experiences if there are expenses that go beyond the norms.
Thanks, Paul. And you mentioned some student stories, and I know that we have some really exceptional seniors who will be going off in the world and taking their skills elsewhere, and wonder if you'd share some of the stories. You know the students so well, and maybe give some examples of what our students are now going off to do. They put the time in, They've made the investment in Wilkes, and now they're off and running, at least shortly. Maybe some
Sure.
stories about.
Well, there are a few. Yeah, I thought you might ask me about that, so I was thinking about a couple of our what we call our super seniors who are about to graduate and have really created wonderful outcomes for themselves. I'm thinking about Leticia Patino Flores. She's graduating with her Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and Secondary Education, has minors in Spanish and International Relations and History. You know, she's from Bethlehem. She's what we call a first-generation student, meaning that when she gets her degree from Wilkes, she will be the first in her family to have ever earned a degree. And that's, of course, something we're very proud of. And, of course, her family is busting at the seams in pride over that. But what a successful career she had at Wilkes. She's active in so many different activities at Wilkes, taking leadership roles in many organizations. She was public relations chair and secretary of our programming board. For 2 years, she was president of Bacchus, which is a campus club that raises awareness about drug and alcohol abuse and educates students about healthy lifestyles. But, you know, she's been an admissions office ambassador in your office. She's been an orientation mentor, been on student government and education club and the political science organization. But all of these experiences have come together to allow her to be accepted in the very competitive Teach for America program. So she's going to be going off to Baltimore to participate in that program after graduation, where she'll either teach Spanish or social studies. Then there's another young man I thought I would talk about is Cody Morcom. He's from Scott Township, Pennsylvania, north of Scranton. And he's going to be graduating with his, Doctor of Pharmacy degree in this year. And, we've been privileged to have Cody here for 6 years. And he's been as engaged a student as you could possibly be at Wilkes. He served as both president of our student government for our undergraduates, but then after he finished his first 4 years, became then the president of the Pharmacy Student Senate. So the two big organizations that you could be of student governments on campus, he's had the privilege of leading. But just an outstanding young man who's been a resident assistant, meaning that he's one of the leaders who works for our student affairs office in the residence halls. And he's going to be graduating, with his Doctor of Pharmacy degree here this summer. And he'll be commissioned as a captain and a pharmacist in the United States Air Force on graduation. And then the other student I was going to talk about is, Francesca Varela-Seri, who's graduating with 2 degrees. She's a Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. She was just named the Outstanding Graduate in Psychology, but she's bilingual. She's born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, but lives in Phillipsburg, New Jersey for the last 15 years. And she also has been a resident assistant, but also been an integral member of our women's tennis team, where she's been all conference there, won singles and doubles championships. And, she's finishing and graduating summa cum laude this spring. And she'll be off to the #1 physical therapy school in the country, the University of Pittsburgh, where she'll start her Doctor of Physical Therapy degree this fall. So great stories and plenty more out there also.
Yes, for sure. Really wonderful students. And speaking of good students, we have a question about the honors program. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that program and maybe how it started and some of the types of experiences that they get through that program.
Sure. Well, we have a director of our honors program is Dr. Muller, and she comes with wonderful experience to Wilkes. I think she's finishing her 2nd year with us. And, she provides leadership for this program that provides both curricular and co-curricular opportunities for students who are eligible and are selected into the honors program. It's an enrichment program. It's an opportunity for students to be engaged more in depth, to engage in scholarly work with their faculty, but to also collaborate outside of the classroom with their peers in this honor society. The university provides special housing arrangements for students who are in the honors program so that they can live together should they choose that. But there are also, opportunities for programming and travel together. And the university's provided some additional financial support to enrich the experience that our students in our honors program have.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good feedback about the program, and I think the students appreciate living together, learning together. It's a really unique part of the program, for sure.
Yeah, they live in these wonderful old mansions on West River Street. So they're buildings that really foster community. They would remind you of, they're just old, wonderful homes, and they're very conducive to engagement and interaction and community spirit. So it's a great experience.
Great. Well, Paul, I think we're wrapping up the hour here. I certainly want to thank you for your time and your expertise. And again, everyone, we're really in the same position you are, and we're paying close attention to the way the world is changing and the types of decisions that we need to be making. And so we will do our very best to communicate with you. I really encourage you to use your admissions counselors as your advocates. If you need to be connected to certain people on this campus, they're really the best avenue. If you have questions about anything, we'll try to really make sure that you get the right answers, or at least to the right people to get those answers. And we also have, again, an entire week worth of content for you, and you'll have opportunities to ask questions during each of those sessions as well. So if your questions aren't answered, and we're going to culminate the full week in Blue and Gold Day. This is a tradition that we do at Wilkes every year. It has traditionally been on May 1st, so we wanted to keep some things the same. And so we're going to end this week of live sessions with Blue and Gold. So we encourage you to wear your Wilkes gear, wear it and share it. Make sure that you take a selfie and that you tag us in it. That's hashtag WilkesU. And we want to see your best selfie with your Wilkes Blue and Gold. But we will certainly be in touch, and we really appreciate your participation. And we look forward so much to meeting you all in person just as soon as we are able to. So thank you again for joining us. Thanks again, Paul. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. All right.
Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.